Welcome back to another episode of the Junk Monkeys podcast. A very special episode this week, everyone. I'm Randy McLeod, your host, joined by Bradley Gertzen.
Heyo.
But also the wonderful Christopher Vauzelle.
Special guest. Bonjour.
Hey, Chris, so excited to have you on, and especially for this episode where we're talking survival stories.
It is really an honor to finally see the inside of the podcast rather than the outside.
Yeah. No, we're excited to have you. It feels like I'm giving a tour to like, I was saying it to Brad, but it's like a Make-A-Wish kid.
And this is where we do this.
Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna be talking survival stories. We're gonna be talking about bushcraft, because apparently that's a term I didn't know was a thing. But Brad's gonna tell me all about that.
You've never heard the word?
We're gonna get to it, man. Don't you worry.
Right. Yeah, we're in the intro still.
Absolutely.
I can't yap yet.
So please stick around for this episode of the Junk Monkeys podcast. Like a musical bit.
That'd be wild.
Yeah. Hey everyone, welcome back.
Hey.
So excited, genuinely. Like, I've been thinking about this podcast for like, I woke up in the middle. I didn't wake up in the middle of the night like a revelation from God or anything like that.
You're just sweating.
Yeah, it's like,
oh,
wait,
this podcast.
shit.
Write it down.
No, I was lying in bed trying to sleep, and I was like, man, I want to get Chris on the show somehow, but I need to find like the right topic. And I was like, wait, Chris is into survival stuff.
Oh, Randy.
Are you into survival stuff, Chris?
I love survival.
Oh, that's perfect. This is fantastic. This is going to work out so well.
This is going to be great.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
So honestly, let's get right into it, guys, because like we don't really need to preamble. We don't really need to do anything.
There's not much to say.
Obviously, there's housekeeping. Our shorts are doing really, really well. And shout out to Dan for making these, but like they're like our last one just got up to like 90 views somehow.
Yeah.
I was like, that doesn't work. Or, that doesn't happen. So yeah, thanks for checking those out. Operation Get Ran to San Fran still in effect.
Woohoo!
I still have the opportunity, hopefully, to go to San Francisco, and you just have to fill out a Google Doc if you're interested to throw me a nomination. It's in the description. And then quick update on the media draft. I wanted to start throwing this in because like it's been interesting so far. Brad,
I don't want to talk about it.
What's
I
wrong?
don't really want to talk about it.
No, it's okay. We can talk about it.
No, my feelings are hurt.
If you missed it, we had an episode called the 2024 media. I can't remember what we called it, but basically,
2024 media draft.
I think so. Nobody checked it out, but it's important to me, so I want to. I need to let everybody know. Basically, we chose a bunch of movies and Metacritic scores and all that fun stuff. So Brad is currently in last place thanks to Madam Web.
I don't know why even.
I don't either. I don't know.
You know what? Whatever.
Yep, it's
Committed.
fun. So
Committed.
Brad's sitting at minus 39 in the standings. Noah's sitting at plus 31. And then Mike with one game, Final Fantasy VII, is sitting at 44 points.
Wow.
Didn't he guess it exactly?
He guessed the exact Metacritic score, and it's in the 90s. So he made a bunch of points on one game.
Yeah, it was kind of fucked up.
Yeah. And then at some point, Brad, you have to choose me a new movie, because one of my movies, Mickey 17, got booted out of this year.
I heard about that.
That was pretty sad.
Okay. I got to do some research then.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to put you on the spot right now, but yeah. For those that are interested, those are the standings. Guys, adapt, improvise, and survive.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? You remember that Bear Grylls meme?
No.
Is that what? No?
I think it's improvise. No, adapt, imprise, overcome.
That's it.
Oh, right.
Yeah, but that doesn't really fit with the
Improvise,
survive.
adapt,
That's right.
overcome.
That's
There
right.
we go.
Guys, let's talk about survival. You might think like, oh man, these three fellas, what do they know about survival? Apparently a lot.
Talk about video games.
Yeah,
all
these
the time.
guys don't know
What do
anything.
they
They have
know
a
about?
media draft.
They're geeks, nerds.
Nerds.
Work 40 hours a day.
A day.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Unpaid overtime.
Shit, you're making more hours in the day. Eh?
Yeah.
Damn.
It's crazy.
So to get into this conversation, because I feel like there's a lot of like lore that we need to delve into each other's histories with this sort of stuff. Brad, I kind of want to start with you because I posed this question and being like, hey, I posed it to Brad and Noah, and I was like, hey, which of you has the most experience with survival? And I was like, not really, but like I could do it. And then Brad's like, oh, I'm literally out in the bush right now.
Yeah, I literally was. Yeah.
So A, tell me about that, and B, would you call yourself a survivalist?
Full-fledged survivalist, I don't think I could crown myself that. There's there's people who go out there for a week with nothing but a knife and a gun and are like, let's do this thing.
Yeah.
I'm surviving. But I do like just being outside. Like for the tent thing, I guess to get into that, I was literally just in BC in the mountains, like just in a tent. The tent had a wood stove in it, which was sick.
Ooh, that's so cool.
It's super nice, dude. It was super nice. But I mean, like, I was camping my whole life, and I've spent most of my time as a childhood, like, outside. Like, so I kind of, like, very used to being outside. I wouldn't sit there and be like, I could walk out into the bush and survive forever. But
Totally.
I do enjoy the idea of one day disappearing into the bush for a week and just being like, let's do this.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in it. And I mean, constantly watch those like 8-hour videos of people going on canoe trips and they're like surviving it. I don't know if you ever seen those before.
Dal showed me one a couple weeks ago where it was just like a guy out in the Arctic, or not in the Arctic, but like in a snow-filled area.
Yeah.
And he had one of those like, it wasn't a snowmobile, but it was like it's almost like a dog sled that was like motorized, if that makes sense.
I think I've seen those. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I think they use those for like ice fishing.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so what was the occasion? Like, you just wanted to get out there?
Literally just wanted to get out there. Well, Josie, like, she had always, like, there's this place called Chilliwack in BC.
Yeah.
And for some reason, she just had this, like, we got to go to Chilliwack. I've heard about it, and I wanted to go ever since. And then we went to this historical site called Kilby Park around there, and they have a campsite in there.
Okay.
And it's, like, along a lakeside camping and everything like that, and there was just no one else there but us. So we just like stayed there for 4 days and just had the greatest time.
Yeah, I'm assuming like it was like they have these things called like bumper seasons, I guess. I've just discovered where it's like people don't go camping in February or March, April.
No.
But that kind of makes it really rad for you.
It is, because it's really nice out. Like the lowest it got was probably -6.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah, like
That's summer temperatures.
Yeah.
And that's like middle of the night when you're under a blanket, like cozied up in bed. So it's like you'd wake up and it'd be like -3, a little chilly, but you'd like go start the fire and then you'd be chilling in 5 minutes and you'd make coffee and whatever.
It's not like oppressive cold where you're just like, this is the worst experience of my entire life.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Yeah. And we had like, with that wood stove in there, I mean, we did a test run in -15 to 20 in my backyard.
Okay.
And we survived. So
that's awesome, man.
I was pretty cold in the morning, but we did survive. Yeah.
So did you have that equipment ready to go, or was that like you got there and had to rent something?
This was like a little bit of a long time planning. So we got the tent earlier, and then like with the wood stove, and we kind of planned it out for a little while, and then now we obviously are planning on using it more. But yeah, we've like kind of planned it out for a while.
That's awesome.
To have all the stuff to like right now, if we have food and everything like that, we could walk out into a bush and just disappear for a week.
So,
now, which is awesome.
Can you explain to me kind of like you brought up like when I sent the question and you were like, yeah, I'm actually doing a little bit of bushcraft myself. What is bushcraft? Like, how is that different?
Like I'd say it's like using really just the stuff in the bush to make things is how I kind of think of it.
Okay.
As like a way to like create tools or like survive. I don't know. I can't tell you the exact definition.
That's fine. I'd like your definition.
That's kind of my definition of it. Like we made, I don't know, I made an ashtray out there at one point because we were bored and I was whittling. Yeah. Well, I mean,
you were whittling?
It was
That's
wood whittling.
rad, dude.
It was super fun.
Hell yeah.
For like 3-4 hours a day for the first 2 days.
Yeah.
Like, I was just committed. It's actually a super fun pastime.
Yeah.
And then Josie made like a wooden cooking spoon because we didn't have enough utensils.
That's so cool.
So we were just like chilling there and she was like, yeah, let's do that. So she made that and then, yeah. I don't know. It was a fun pastime, especially when you're out there. There's no rush to do anything.
Yeah.
So it's just super relaxed. And so it's kind of like like when you're at home, I feel like you're always thinking about something. But when we're out there, it's like there's no...
Mind empty.
Yeah, mind empty. There's only one goal, which is like, okay, we got to eat when I'm hungry, and that's the rest of it's whatever. Like we had one portable charger out there and didn't even use it all.
I was gonna ask you, like, did you guys have your phones with you or anything like that,
Yeah,
or was
they
it?
were there.
Yeah.
Really just there though. I think we used them mostly for music. I think we played music 20 hours out of the day.
Yeah.
Just constantly, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
That's awesome, man.
It's super fun.
I'm so glad you had that experience.
Yeah, I think I'm like, obviously when you told me about your hiking experience, I was like, I got to do something like that again.
Absolutely.
And the mountains are pretty unreal.
There's Chris, how do you like when it comes to mountains?
Yeah, what is your thought on mountains?
What's your stance on mountains?
Well, I'll tell you what, and I think you guys can pretty much relate to that. Middle of Manitoba, the only mountain you're really getting is Brandon Hills.
Yeah, let me tell you. And
it's quite the mountain.
So as soon as you're going out west and you see those little peaks peeking out over Calgary,
yeah, that's a
really,
nice feeling.
Unreal experience.
Yeah. So, Brad, I appreciate the story, and we'll obviously delve into more of yours. But our special guest, Christopher Vauzelle, when I was coming up with this idea, I was like, I don't think if I were to ask anybody to be like, hey, can you come help me out in the bush? Like, there's nobody I would call faster than Christopher. Even though I don't actually know anything about your like experience with survival, I just assume that you're a survival guy.
Oh, Randy, my heart. It's probably just the way I dress.
Yeah, pretty much. But like, would you call yourself a survivalist, or even just like not a rookie, but like fledgling? I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, like how I would position myself on the scale, really? Okay.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, like, I just want to know, like, basically, are you into bushcraft? Are you into this sort of thing? And is it something that like you think you could do? Like, if obviously you could go into the woods out at your place, and probably do pretty well. I'm assuming, right?
Oh, well, that's a nice compliment you're telling me, Randy. Well, yeah, I don't know if survivalist is such a big word. I don't know. Like, I'm nothing like Bear Grylls, honestly.
No, yeah,
I like growing out in the countryside on a farm and not having a car to go anywhere. Well, you got to find stuff to do, and most likely it's in the nature and just tinkering around really till you find something you like. And so going through that and discovering things, and well, being in the countryside, you always have the animals, the woods and everything, and just growing up in there, that's really how I got interested in it. And then I think the most pivotal point in my life where I got really into survivaling, what am I saying? But I wouldn't say I'm such survivalist. Maybe back in my age when I was in high school or something, I was maybe a bit more of a survivalist, but I consider myself more of a prepper more than anything.
Oh, cool. Interesting.
Yeah.
Now,
I like that idea.
I don't know if you guys heard that term before, prepper. Yeah, okay. So I don't know if you guys ever seen this show. It's called Doomsday Preppers.
Okay.
I have not heard of this.
I've heard of the show. I've definitely heard that title before.
I do recommend to watch at least one episode.
Okay.
Because most of the time, it's a bunch. It's filmed in the States, obviously, but it's a bunch of producers that go and see families, and they're like, "Oh, well, what's your doomsday prepper scenario?"
Okay.
And they go through all these things, and some of them it's like the zombie apocalypse. Other of them it's like, oh, it's the nuclear apocalypse. And other it's just like, oh, well, last year my house flooded, and I don't want it to happen again. You know?
Totally.
It really drastically changes, but. Kind of lost myself here. I'm very
No, it's
sorry.
okay. That's the entire point of this podcast is like just going off on tangents.
But in 2014, there's this game that I came to discover called Metro 2033.
Okay.
And that game finished by influencing the rest of my life.
Okay.
And it's a big statement to do, but anything I've did from then really came from this.
Okay.
So, yeah, I got more into surviving and prepping because being a kid living in the middle of nowhere, well, that's all I had to think about. I'm like, oh, what if this happened? What if that happened? And I'm like, I want to be ready.
Yeah.
I don't want to be, and I've had this mentality ever since I was a kid. It's like, I don't want to be in a position where I can't thrive or can't be comfortable in the position that I am.
Right.
That's awesome.
So... yeah, that's just really how I got into it, and from continuing even today, I still have those little mental reflexes where I'm like, oh, I'm going there. I should bring this in case of that.
That's so interesting because those are some of my favorite thought experiments to have. Is like just like, okay, I'm in this situation. What do I do? One of my favorite things I used to think about when I was like trying to sleep back in college was like. If everybody was gone tomorrow, what do I do?
Right.
And I think you and I have talked about this where I'm like, well, would I actually do anything like anarchy, like breaking a window or something like that? Yeah, I know. I can't. Anarchy.
That's a large word.
Yeah.
That's like a weird one.
Yeah. But like, would I break a window? And I'm like, well, for the first week, probably not, because I'd be scared if everybody would come back. You know what I mean? Like, and then I'd be like, who broke my window?
The only guy there, Randy McLeod.
That guy. What were you doing?
Just Ring door cam video.
Right? Damn it.
Oh, they got me.
But yeah, like I love that you called it prepping or prepper.
Prepping. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing.
I think that's really, really cool. I think that's like. Obviously growing up rural as well, like that was very much like well, what are we doing today? Because I don't really have anything to do.
Exactly.
And Grandpa hasn't shown up to pick me up for golfing yet. So, so it was basically like, okay, well, I'm gonna see if I can climb this tree. You know what I mean? Like it was like, and then I was thinking to myself as a kid, I'm like, okay, one day I might need to learn how to climb a tree in case it's like one of those situations where like the forest is on fire or there's a bear chasing me and I need to get scramble up this tree, right? So yeah, that's really, really interesting. That like, and so, you talk about Metro being like this inspiration for you. Was it more so like inspiring, or was it more so a cautionary, like, oh, should shit hit the fan, I need to be ready? Or was it more like, oh man, this is really cool that people know how to do this, I want to learn how to do this?
That's a very good question, and I think it's a little bit of both, I would say, because I mean, obviously it's a video game, you know, it's not a real scenario that does happen, because I'm pretty sure if that would happen, they'd all die after like a year of radiation poisoning. But it did put in my mind, like, you know, like in this world that we're growing into, and there's always like political factors, geopolitical, not to get into all that stuff, but you know, you're like, well, you know, if anything happens, and even like when you think of that blizzard we've had not too long ago,
Great point.
We were lucky that we didn't have any power outages. But what if there is a scenario where suddenly the grid goes dark and then you don't know when you're going to get electricity back?
That's so interesting, because like somebody, I feel like it's one of those like small talk things where it's like, oh, or like a classic like you're on internet like Microsoft Edge or something like that, and it's just like, did you know that in 2028 there will be a solar storm that hits that is going to knock out all the cell phones for at least 3 days or something like that? And like everybody's like, oh, so what would you do? And I'm like, actually, that's really interesting.
Probably hang around.
Yeah. And like I don't think there's anything like more that puts you into the mindset of being like survive or like than a power outage. Like, do you remember growing up and like that shit hitting? You're like, I need to find the candles. I need to find a flashlight. I need to like.
Parents kept the landline just in case.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
My brother and like Mike and my dad went to Kelowna for a rugby thing, and then a blizzard like that hit. Like, I guess I wasn't here for the blizzard, but I'm assuming it was pretty stinky. And then so what we did is the power went out and it was just me and my mom. So we had to like set up like space heaters and a generator and like put all the cords inside. And I remember for like 2 days it was like the coldest thing ever. Oh God. But it's like situations like that for sure where I'm like, wow, if we make sure we're prepared for this, which luckily we were, if we didn't have a generator and gas and a way to heat at all, we're like kind of screwed.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
We're putting ourselves under all our blankets and wearing a snowsuit and hoping we survive the next 2 days.
You just hope that the power comes back on.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, and it's like that's weird to think that I'm at that people are at the mercy of something we don't even know anything about. Really.
Yeah, yeah,
it's
totally.
just something we have that we're just like take for granted sometimes too often.
It's so interesting too that like I'm starting to think about like if I were to be better at being a prepper, I'd actually be pretty bad, because I look at my pantry right now and I'm just like, okay, I have 4 cans of salmon, no cans of beans, 2 cans of diced tomatoes. Like,
well, it's hard, especially when you're younger, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of something you get into when you are a little more stable.
Yeah, totally.
I've been working for a little while, but
like I'm not younger. I'm in my 20s.
Shit, it's the fan, man.
I mean, I'm just in an apartment in Brandon. You know what I mean?
Oh, Chris. So I meant to ask. So like, I know. When I was a kid, like I watched a lot of like the How to Survive This.
Oh, right.
You know the episodes where there was the one guy who would always go out into random wilderness. I can see his face, but I can't remember his name. He always wore the bandana and he had the gray hairs and.
Oh.
You know what I'm talking about? And he would.
I can picture him.
Yeah, for sure. Then he would like go out and survive that. Like, did you ever watch that kind of media a lot, or were you like interested in that kind of shows, or was it always like you played the game and you were like. Boom. Or did you watch a lot of media on it?
No, for that I would have to thank YouTube.
Yep.
YouTube is an incredible resource of different media that you can get on any subject virtually. But yeah, it's really just, you know, curiosity and just being like, oh, well, what does this do? What is this? And why do people do this for that reason? And then you'd find a lot of videos on YouTube, and some of them, they're completely wrong. Others are, well, they give you a more of a clue of what it is. And yeah, no, mostly YouTube. All the channels I had were in French,
Right.
and sometimes they weren't translated properly.
Okay.
So YouTube was really the saving grace, and like instead of waiting for the episode on Thursday at 6, well, I could just look it up right away, and figure out what I was looking for.
That's really funny. If you were like watching a YouTube video, it's like, hey, and it's like in French, or it's like in English, so it's like, do not eat this plant, and there's like a mistranslation where it's like, definitely eat this plant. Yeah, I mean, for me, like growing up, it was like shit like Man Tracker.
Yeah, Man.
Yeah, do you remember Man
I
Tracker?
rewatched an episode of Man Tracker the other day.
Yeah.
And it was on some streaming service.
Kind of banging.
Kind of pretty banging.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool.
That was a cool show.
Yeah, I feel like there was so much like filler content growing up.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But like at the time, you're like, this is incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
I went back and I couldn't watch more than one episode.
No.
My brain was just, it's too wired for TikToks and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's too slow.
It's too
you know?
slow.
It's like, come on,
find
catch them
'em
already. Chris, that's fantastic. I can't wait to delve into more of that as we talk more about our survival stuff. I want to jump in.
Yeah, Randy, you should.
I think I will.
I think you should.
I can't wait to hear about you.
So, like, when we think Randy McLeod, we think a guy that watches movies. We think a guy that writes. We don't think a survivalist. I'm not a survivalist. I'm not going to say that I'm a survivalist. But like, I was thinking back to it, and I was like, how do I? When I was thinking up this episode, I'm like, well, how am I going to participate in the conversation? Because I don't really have any survival experience. Turns out I actually do, and I just forgot.
Yeah.
So myself, my brother, and my sister, we were in the Air Cadet program.
Ooh.
And we're like, oh, okay, so, you know, Air Cadets, flying, whatever. No, a very important aspect and like one of the key pillars of Air Cadets or any cadets is survival. They teach you a lot about survival. There are cadet camps about survival in Alberta that you can go to in the summer. And so I was thinking back on it. I was like, oh, I've actually done a lot. Like not like in a situation where like they just like drop you in the middle of a forest and be like, survive, you know. But like one of my favorite memories was like going to we'd call them survival weekends where we'd go to the Shiloh base.
Oh. Okay.
And there's like a little fielded like forested area next to the golf course actually, so you're not quite out of civilization.
That's funny.
But they would basically like take all these kids, first year, second years, third years, and fourth years, and they'd be like, all right, we're gonna set up a situation where you're gonna learn a lot of like survival techniques and stuff like that. So it was a lot of like, hey, we set up the tents. Okay, we're set up the tents. Get the fire going. So go get firewood, bring it back. We'll get a fire going. And then they would set up like fire watch duty where you have to keep the fire going. So it's like, hey, you're on from 2 till 4 in the morning. And you would take your shift and then you go wake up the next person and be like, okay, you're on for the next 2 hours, go. But like, honestly, those experiences, and by the way, we did these in like September, early October.
It was pretty chilly.
It was fucking freezing. I remember I remember waking up at like, I don't know when we'd wake up, probably like 7 a.m. And they'd be like, all right, time to go. And I'm like, I can't feel my toes. Like,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So like wool socks, godsend. We love wool socks.
I love big fluffy wool socks.
Yeah,
man.
dude.
It was the comfiest thing ever.
Yeah. So I mean, like, we'd learn stuff like wayfinding. Like,
oh, right.
And honestly, I really, really enjoyed wayfinding, where it was basically like you have a compass and then a string, and then you would like hold it out to like, and they would provide like coordinates and be like, hey, you need to find this coordinate and then walk this many paces this way. They'd set up like these little not obstacle courses, but like basically like a treasure hunt kind of out in the forest. And I'm like, this is fucking awesome.
Sounds
and like,
sick.
Yeah, that was really fun. We learned how to construct lean-tos, which are basically just like half shelters.
Yeah.
So that was really, really cool. And like at the time, I was probably like I wasn't like super like incredibly into it, but at the same time I was like, hey, this is a fun weekend. Like I'm having a good time.
For sure.
So yeah, that's kind of like my like quick deep dive into like what experience I have when it comes to like survivalist. And I think like maybe even we could change the like instead of talking about survival stories or like I feel like it's almost like outdoor enthusiasts. You know what I mean?
It's like
pretty
outdoor
much.
ed class.
Yeah, kind of.
I mean, we literally did fire making in outdoor ed, and there was
Yeah,
like
outdoor ed.
in Elton. Yeah, did you not have outdoor ed?
I don't think so.
Oh.
Yeah, there was like a 2-day kayak trip they'd take.
No way.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't think I never got to do it because COVID hit, but I mean, like,
Oh,
it's
shit.
pretty sick. And they go out there and be like, yeah, make a fire. Like,
What grade was this?
I think it was grade 11, 12.
What the? I never did this.
God.
Seems pretty sick, doesn't it?
Yeah, kind of.
Kind of
It
jealous.
was- I've heard it was pretty fun.
Huh.
Obviously, there's some mischievousness that goes on at a senior
Of
class
course.
that gets to go camping all together. But
Could you imagine you did it over Zoom? Like,
oh my
you
god,
just set up a
just
laptop.
a bunch of guys in the bush just zooming.
Yeah, you just put the laptops out there and then like you just.
Everyone's making their own little lean-to together.
Yeah.
Just in my backyard.
It'd be really funny. So
That'd be so goofy.
I know, right? Just like putting your laptop in a kayak and just like pushing it down the
Somebody's
stream.
like holding their laptop while they start a fire. Like,
Yeah,
what are we
right.
doing here right now?
This is fine.
It's just weird.
So, Chris, do you have my next point on here is like is survival stories. Do you have any like stories of like I don't know if for some reason your parents were like oh shit, we forgot Chris out in the bush, and then you had to like survive at the age of 4, and you befriended the wolves, and you know what I mean? Like,
Home Alone out of the bush.
yeah,
or
right.
something.
Do you have any like survival stories in terms of like anything that kind of shaped how you began to get good? You know what I mean?
No, fair enough. Well, really, I'm fortunate enough that as I said earlier, I lived on a farm,
Mhm.
and the nice thing with the farm is that it came with a 3/4 section and
Yeah.
even more fields around. So also living by a creek was I really had the perfect environment to really grow and learn and just do fun things around.
Mhm.
And I would only have the weekend off because, well, obviously I was going to school.
Of course.
And my parents were against me skipping school,
To
weirdly
survive
enough.
in the bush.
Yeah, exactly. Weird thing.
Why
Yeah.
would they do that?
Even if I wanted, I couldn't get away. My mom was a teacher, and my dad was the bus driver. so-
Ah, shit, yeah. You literally are getting roll called every day.
You probably had
Exactly.
the longest bus ride ever.
Yes and no, depended. Sometimes I stayed till the end, and I got a treat.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
A little gas station co-op, and then
Ooh.
I don't know, pepin cheddar. Or,
And a little pepper ched.
Oh, those little
Those
greasy
disgusting-
little
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Ooh, I've seen a few of those. I thought about it.
That was giving me many a diarrhea.
I thought about it
Yeah.
for sure.
Would not recommend.
Nope.
But I'm strafing away here. But no, so really what I've done is just, just being alone at the farm. And I'm like, well, hey, I want to go and make a fire.
Okay.
Hey, I'm going to try and go and make a fire. And so,
Turns out really hard.
yeah, like, especially if you want to start from scratch.
Yep.
But I'm like, okay, well, I'll get some matches, I'll get some paper, and then I'm like, hey, I forgot the paper. Let me try with something I find outside. And it's just like trial and error and just trying a bunch of different things.
For sure.
And then just getting a bit more involved in like, hey, you know what? I'd like to have a hatchet.
Mm-hmm.
So I can use it to split the wood, make a fire, make some tools or whatever.
Yeah.
And it culminated to this one experience I do remember. I was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to go and spend the night in the pastures.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I know around our our farm, it's fairly safe. I mean, there's been stories about like cougars and like moose and I think what was the other time? Oh, I think my dad saw a wolf once, but I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go in the forest, and my parents are like,
I'm
"Are
gonna
you
do
sure you want to do that?" I'm like, "Yeah." And surprisingly enough, they let me go to it.
And sorry, how old were you at this point?
Oh God, I was high school.
It's like 3.
3.5,
I'm gonna go out there.
Yeah, probably I don't know, grade 11, grade 10, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Old enough.
Yeah, old enough, and that experience. Yeah, I should have been. Yeah, probably grade 12. Too.
Okay.
So somewhere in there, I remember I was allowed to have my firearm. That's all. That's all. I remember.
Okay, right.
Legal purposes.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go and sleep in the pastures. So I would have my backpack. I always had my backpack prepared. because I like never know what could happen.
He's a prepper. Huh?
That is
Prepper.
that is- yeah.
Ties in, eh? So I would have my backpack. I would have like some food in there, like dehydrated food. I would bring knives, little canteens, boil water, all that basic kind of need.
He's got the camp craft. He's ready.
Oh
Yeah.
God, I had like 3 separate backpacks like that with the same stuff in there. I'd always get confused which one was which.
What do they call it? A bug-out bag? Is that the term
Yeah,
for it?
yeah. Actually, I think you're right. It's a.
I
I
always
don't think I've
watch-
heard that.
I think it's a bug-out bag. I think Brad is right.
I went into a YouTube hole where I just watched bug-out bags and like people just like showing their whole like prepper bag
Hell yeah.
for like ever. It's very, very interesting, and I think I'll totally get one once I'm out of school and everything. Like just to have there.
Yeah.
Like whether I put it in my car or just in my, I think it's totally a really smart thing to do. Something you can just grab and be like, I have everything I need to survive.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, some people do that with like if they travel a lot, they'll always just have like a travel bag ready to go. It's like, oh, like in case like, oh, I gotta make this flight and I don't have time to prep. It's like
Right.
I just have a bag ready to go.
Yeah, and it has everything I need. Yeah.
So yeah, pretty much that, and yeah, I just decided, hey, I'm gonna go and camp out in the pastures. So I would go in the pastures. I'd grab my gun. Like I don't know if there's anything that's gonna eat me out there.
Yeah, of course.
And then I remember I just went just alongside the creek, right beside an old beaver dam, and made my fire. And I tried sleeping, couldn't sleep.
Okay.
Yep.
I stayed awake till like 6, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go and sleep.
You're
home
just
now.
like you're like hugging your rifle, like being like,
Yeah.
if anything ever comes near me.
and then
You've
sometimes
grown a beard somehow.
Yeah. in the 8 hours that I was away from home.
Yeah, exactly. I've come back a man.
Yeah, and then I'd hear a noise. I'd get up and I'd kind of look suspiciously. And I'm like, oh, okay.
It's pretty weird. Like getting out of the safety of your house.
Yeah,
for sure. And
absolutely.
Being out there, like in the tent, I definitely had troubles for the first night where I was like, "What was that noise?"
Yeah.
Because like there's like nothing really protecting you. Like it's just you're out there.
It's just you, man.
Yeah, there's
Yep.
no wood or nothing. It's like that.
But yeah, no, I know that was one of my experiences, and no, a whole lot of it was just hunting and just being out there, and the quiet.
Yeah, man.
That is something that's different, eh?
Therapeutical.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the word.
Therapeutic would be the word.
Yeah, therapeutic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like therapeutical.
I like it better, but more like that's a
Rolls
very
off the
fun
tongue.
word, you know.
Rolls off the tongue nice.
Yeah, honestly, I kind of wanted to talk about hunting at one point where I'm like, for me at least, I'm very much like I just don't hunt. I remember there was a time when like, my brother was. So when we talk about like survival aspects and like outdoor enthusiasts, I think my brother was more like the guy. He was the one that went to that survival camp in Alberta. Like Riley was very much like the guy that's like, oh, there's a skunk out there, and he's like already got the shotgun, and he's like, oh,
Right.
okay, all right.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
And I think he went deer hunting with my grandpa, like when he was a kid, but like that was never my thing. I just like little soft boy Rand was very much like, I can't hurt the animals.
Right.
Obviously, like I understand, I'm not like a person that's like, oh man, fuck people that hunt. No,
Right.
like I obviously understand it. It's just very much like a thing. It's just not for me.
Right.
Actually, funny story. I had a, you know, when you're a kid and you're like, oh man, you don't quite understand like the impact that you have on things around you.
Right.
So we had a 22 rifle, and I was just walking around, and I saw like a bird out on the dugout, and I was like, I'm gonna see if I can hit it.
Yeah. Right.
And I winged it. It's just actually kind of a fucked up story. I winged it, or I hit it, but I didn't kill it.
Right.
And then I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
And you feel like an asshole because
yeah.
like, oh shit, I just caused suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept trying to hit it again to like kill it, and I couldn't. And I was like, oh, I've done an awful thing.
Yeah. There's definitely, I think everybody should have that experience where you're like, oh, blah, blah, blah. Like especially with hunting, I feel like you shoot something for your first time, and you're like, I did just kill something.
Yeah.
Like I did just end something's life.
And
it
I think-
kind of maybe opens your head a little bit. Like
yeah.
like if you're not doing it without reason, like with no plan to use any of the animal or
sport.
anything like that, or just because you want to shoot it, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to do that.
No.
You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah,
Even-
that's really interesting.
yeah. Like I've definitely done the same thing where I shot a bird and then with a BB gun, and I was like, oh, I'm so sweet. And
Yeah.
then I was like, why did I do that?
If somebody shot me with a fucking BB gun, I'd be pissed. You know what I mean?
Literally, he was just chilling.
Yeah,
He wasn't
he was
doing
minding
nothing.
his own. It was a
Yeah.
fucking pigeon. It,
Yeah.
it has like a brain cell, like,
It's like,
and
let
you're just
him.
like, well,
yeah. No, it's definitely that.
yeah. Brad, you've done hunting, right?
Yeah, I still hunt.
Yeah.
To this day.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah, it was kind of like one of those things. It was like the family, like the family's always hunted, so it was like yeah, why wouldn't, like I just kind of got thrown into it from when I was a kid.
Yep.
And I think it's a super super important thing. I don't know, like in a way of like just again back to like knowing how to do it, and then like also learning the complete like the respect of an animal and like, and everything like that. I think is really important, like understanding what goes into processing an animal, like from shooting it to butchering it and skinning it and everything else, and got like the whole ball of wax.
Yeah, I think it's very much like you need to be a part of that process the whole way through.
Oh yeah.
Otherwise, like if you just shoot something and be like, hand it to somebody and be like, deal with this. Like, no.
Some people do that, but yeah, I don't think
absolutely.
it's right.
So you've done that for like I've had some of your family's like the fruits of that labor, and like it's incredible. It's so tasty,
delicious.
But like at the same time, I don't know. You understand that like that thing was a thing.
It was living.
Yeah.
If I didn't shoot it, it would still be alive.
True.
Or maybe shot by someone else. But
and that's not me being like, oh yeah, feel bad. That's more
you
like
monster.
Yeah, right.
There should be I think if you shoot anything, there should be some sort of guilt. Period.
Okay.
I feel like I've shot several deer, and it's like I never feel good about it after.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah, it's like the hunt happens, you like. It's like all this adrenaline, and then it happens and it's over, and you're like, wow, I did just kill this thing.
Yeah.
And you're like looking at it and you're like, well.
There's almost like a, I don't want to say this, but like a post-hunt clarity.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. So Chris, did you and your family do a lot of hunting?
No, my dad really got back into hunting because I got interested into hunting.
Interesting. Okay.
So I remember I went for my hunter safety course in Wawanesa.
Super fun time.
Oh, God.
I've only heard tales of hunter safety courses being some of the most boring 8 hours. Like,
yeah,
it's
slideshows, man.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of slideshows, and I don't know how it was when you went, Brad, but when I went to mine, basically had a picture of a deer, and then the lady with the mouse, and she's like, all right, where are you going to shoot the deer? And we're like, left, bottom, right, shoot, bang. Wow, you shot the heart. Good job.
Yeah.
And so I
show me on the doll where you want to shoot the deer.
Yeah. But yeah, no, really experiences like that, and then I remember the first deer I got with my dad, and I relate to what you said, Brad. It's that guilt of shooting your first deer.
For sure. That's
oh
weird.
God, I remember when I shot my first deer, I didn't shoot it quite right, and
it's a suffering thing. Yeah.
Oh God, I shot its leg off.
Oh no!
So it's terrible. It's terrible. I still see it vividly in my mind. But it tried limping away.
Oh no!
Yeah.
See, that's why I can't do this shit, man.
That's the one thing is that oftentimes, like, if you miss, it's like you gotta go. Like, you can't just leave the deer.
No, absolutely
like,
not.
That'd be just awful. So you just gotta go.
No.
Yeah. So I took my second shot, and then finally it went limp, and I was like, thank God.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, my dad was like, all right, I'll go and get the truck. Stay here. And then I just sat beside the deer, and I just petted it slightly. I'm like, I'm so sorry.
Damn, man.
It is literally like that second when you're sitting there alone with it, and you're like, wow, yeah, that thing is dead.
Yeah,
I
and
did kill that.
And then you have it for a meal, and you're like, oh my God, I'm so glad I did that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fascinating because like I'm for some reason when you guys are talking about this I'm thinking of a big buck hunter like the fucking arcade thing.
Like,
yeah, it's like, oh, shoot the deer. I'm like, hell yeah, I'm shooting the deer. If I was out in the fucking forest and like there was like 15 deer running across the screen and I'm like trying to shoot all of them, I'm like, no, this is irresponsible.
Shoot one deer and I'll be good, man.
Yep. Yeah. That's so fascinating.
Yeah, like I know, like I shot deer, I shot foxes, coyotes.
You shot coyotes?
Oh yeah,
No way.
Oh, they.
Oh yeah.
My well, we have a farm, and so we have chicken, ducks, pretty much anything you can imagine, pigs and everything, and we would always lose so many chickens.
Yeah.
To the coyotes and the foxes. I mean, I don't blame them. That's
the
just
foxes,
how they're made, But I know I have this very old rifle. It's a Mosin Nagant.
Okay.
It was made in 1942.
Damn.
And it's with that rifle that I shoot my foxes and my coyotes. And I remember this precise day, actually. We had been losing like tens and tens of chickens. And then my dad's like, that coyote's back. I'm like, I got him, Dad. And so I pick my rifle, and I don't know.
You're having like that suit up scene in a fucking Marvel movie where it's like you like cock the gun. Not cock the gun. It's probably, I'm assuming it's a lever action.
No, it's a bolt action.
Bolt action,
but
sorry.
same thing.
Yeah.
Really.
See, I don't actually know anything about guns. I remember I went over to your farm once, and you were like showing me all your guns, like really excited. I'm like, yep, this is a gun.
It shoots.
This sure is heavy.
Bang.
But yeah, like I just like the idea of you like suiting up and like zipping up your like your camo and shit like that. And like yeah,
boom.
It's like, we're gonna go get this fucker.
No, it's a really cool, cool. It's never really cool to kill an animal, of course, but you're like, well, it's either the chickens or the coyotes, and we've lost already so many chickens.
There's a necessity, especially for farmers, where it's like you gotta just shoot coyotes most of the time.
Exactly. So I remember grabbing my gun, grabbing a handful of cartridges, and I remember crawling into the field trying to get a little bit closer. I'm like, wow, I feel like Rambo, you know?
Yeah.
And then I remember there was 2 of them, and I managed to hit one, but coyotes are very small, and the round I was using, very powerful.
Okay.
Essentially, I shot it, but it just shot right through his chest, and he was still running, you know?
Wow.
Damn.
I had never heard about that before. That's wild.
No, yeah, and so I followed it into the woods, and then I think I managed to, like, either he was exhausted or whatever, but he just plopped on the ground, and he was just living there, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And I had brought my knife with me.
Yeah.
And I ended up, having to stab him in the heart because I didn't have any more rounds.
That's
And I don't know if you remember this, Randy, when I showed you this one rifle, I'm like, do you see those little scratches?
Oh, I do remember this.
Yes, that's me putting the stock into his mouth so he couldn't bite me while I was trying to stab him.
Holy, Chris, that is the most metal thing I've ever heard in my fucking life.
Yeah, I felt terrible about it, but I think it must have been a Saturday or Sunday, and so I brought him back home and I just skinned him, and then I made that little, that little flap thing like you see in the front here, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna tan that hide.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't a guy?
Exactly, and I had all the little knives and everything. I bought the kit, and I'm like, I'm gonna do this. Turned out pretty bad. I didn't take out all the fat and the meat, but it's still hanging in the garage to this day. And
you're gonna have to show me that sometime.
Yeah, I thought I showed it to you.
I'm sure I've seen it in passing, but now that I have the story, I feel like it's a legendary status now. You know what I mean? Like, I put the butt of my gun in its mouth and I stabbed it in the heart.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great experience. I mean, that gun was like what, $200 a Canadian Tire?
Oh, it's not bad.
Yeah. Oh, now it's like $1,000 because inflation.
Yep.
Inflation. Literally. Yeah, I don't know. I think hunting is one of those things. So it's one of those things that you're so focused on in the moment that like it's weird.
You can't think about anything else.
There's nothing else you can think about, especially when you're like trying to stab a coyote or something like that. Like it's like that hyper fixation that you get. That people always like everyone loves being focused on something, and it almost forces you into that focus. And I think that's kind of like the why I like hunting.
Well, I think that's like the survival like primal part of your brain, like like kicking in and being like, it's either me or him right now, or it. What, you know what I mean? Like,
for sure.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I'm very glad that like my parents. I don't think like my dad like ever was like, Riley, you have to go kill that skunk or anything like that. I think that was a voluntary thing. Like Riley was interested in it, therefore he's gonna go try it.
Right.
Because I imagine like some families were very much like, well, you gotta go shoot your first kill or something like that. And like, I'm very glad my dad wasn't like that, because he probably saw my scrawny little body. It was like, if he shoots a shotgun, he's gonna go flying.
There's nothing we can do.
Exactly. That's really interesting, guys. I'm glad we like. I didn't even plan to talk about hunting, but like this is.
I mean, I feel like especially in Manitoba, hunting is kind of
a way of life.
A lot of people do.
Yeah.
I know some people that like that's how they get their meat for the year, is they hunt deer. Like that's just what they do. Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's an interesting skill to have.
Absolutely. Sure. So when you were like for skinning and like tanning and all that fun stuff, was that like a self-taught process, or was that like a, hey Dad, can you help me figure this out? Or
no, like my dad never really skinned. Like a lot of the only thing we did with our deer was just gutting it.
Yeah.
And then if we had time, we would skin it on the table itself. But we wouldn't care about like keeping the hide or anything. We would just toss it. And so it would be covered in holes of like knives and everything.
Yeah.
and then we would bring the rest of the butcher, and then he would cut it in quarters and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Where that came from is because I have a big fascination in history too,
Okay.
and a lot about the fur trading and how it was
Yeah.
back then.
Oh man, you remember social studies growing up and learning about the fur trade?
It.
Yeah,
Couldn't forget
You're
it.
not allowed to forget it.
No, you're not.
'Cause you gotta-
Remember going to Festival de Voyageur?
Yep.
Great time, actually.
I had a great time going to Festival de
I
Voyageur.
was talking about the maple syrup things you get.
Yeah.
there
Oh,
the other day.
la tire,
Yeah, they're very delicious.
La what?
la tire,
Tia.
tire, Tire.
Oh, cool.
They're yummy.
They're very
they're
yummy.
pretty
They're
tasty
delicious.
actually. But no, yeah. So really, where it came from is like, you know what? I want to learn this skill and then, well, I know there was this trapper that was actually my neighbor. He's well into his 80s, almost 90s, and I was like, hey, do you mind if I come and follow you for a day and just see? Could you teach me a little bit about it? And he's like, yeah, come over. And then I remember he went into his freezer and he got all those pelts of beavers and everything.
Oh shit.
Because he was a trapper for the longest time, and so I ended up buying my own beaver traps too, but never used them in the end. But anyway, he showed me. He's like, okay, so this is how you do, and you want to do this like this because you want to preserve the hide, and those pelts have higher value, etc., etc. And that's just how I really learned about it. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try it myself.
Yeah.
And that's how I got around to it.
Chris, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, it genuinely, like, I love learning these little things. Like, obviously, I didn't have that experience growing up.
Right.
Like, I didn't know a trapper that was like in his 80s and grizzled and like fucking like, this is where I keep my pelts. You know what I mean? Like, no, like I that's always my most like interest. Like my favorite thing to talk about and find these like little hidden gems because like. It shows just how curious you were as a kid. I'm assuming, like you weren't like sitting idly and being like, "Well, I'm just gonna sit on the deck today." It's like, no, I need to go learn something about. Like, I'm curious about something, and I think that's really fascinating.
Yeah, well, I loved video games too, but if I did more than 1 hour of video games, my mom would be like, "You're addicted. Go outside."
Yeah, isn't that the worst?
Oh God.
That was the way it was. Yeah.
Yep. My dad would always be like, "Go outside." I'm like, you
What
know
are
what?
you
I'm angry that you're telling me to do that, but in hindsight, I'm actually quite glad you told me to go do
Yeah.
that. You know.
For sure. I was thinking about that. I was like, if I ever end up having children, I'm like, at what point am I like, go be bored?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I think there's a definitely thing where you need to be bored.
Brad, that's a fantastic point. Like, I think boredom inspires people to fix that boredom. And like we have, honestly, with our phones right now, or like social media or anything like that. And I'm not going to be like the classic like old man being like, kids these days.
Yeah.
But it's more like I think being like learning to be bored and what to do with that is a really valuable life lesson.
Huge.
Yeah.
I've been honestly doing a lot of thinking into that recently, and like there's like video essays on YouTube and stuff you can check out. Even like people talk about it quite a bit, where it's like the power of being bored.
Yeah.
Like putting yourself into a bored spot makes you curious, makes you force yourself to learn, especially if you cut yourself off from your phone and video games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, obviously I don't do very often sometimes.
No, I mean,
don't
like, we
care,
can talk about it all day, but,
Yeah.
like, at the end of the day, we're sitting down on the couch and playing whatever.
Yeah,
but, like,
for sure. But there's definitely points where it's like days where it's like, okay, I'm going to do nothing. And that's honestly how I've been trying to make myself do homework with the senioritis or whatever you call it.
Senioritis. Yeah.
Senioritis.
Yeah. I literally would like wake up and I'm like, I'm not allowed to touch my phone. I'm not allowed to do anything with technology until this homework's done. So
Yeah.
I would end up just like screwing around or whatever and like mucking about, and eventually I would like actually enjoy doing my homework
Yeah.
after not doing anything for a while.
My worst thing for that is, like, I'll be like, oh, yeah, I'm not going to touch my phone. I'm not going to play games. I'm not going to, I'm no distractions today. And I'm like, I look over at the broom. I'm like, I could probably sweep.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, oh, dishes got to get done. You know what I mean? Like, you keep finding these things to, like, fill that time. But,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
that's so interesting because, like, I've actually had that thought recently where I was like, when was the last time I told myself I'm bored? Because, like, there's always something to stimulate your brain.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's not the most exciting thing in the world. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
how many times are you on Instagram or on TikTok or on anything and you're just like, this isn't meaningful content. I'm not actually enjoying it.
I've done that a few times.
But it's just like comfortable, you know?
It's just like, yeah, I'm chilling, like
Yeah.
whatever.
Passes time. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Time passers.
I think that's part of the reason
Pastimes,
I might
as
have
some might
enjoyed.
say.
I think it's part of the reason I enjoyed BC so much. It's
Yeah.
'cause, like, it was forced into boredom almost, but I was like very just happy to be bored.
I was
there.
actually like, when you were talking about that, I wrote down like no set schedule. And I think like the fact that when you had mentioned something along the lines of like, well, the only thing I got to do is eat when I'm hungry.
Mm-hmm.
I think like having no set schedule, and I think that ties so well with like being out in the wilderness, being disconnected, and being like surviving, right? There's no like, hey, it's 12 o'clock, therefore I have 2 hours before my next class, and therefore I need to eat now in order to be ready for that, and blah, 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 blah. With like being disconnected and not having those like daily responsibilities or daily like requirements, necessities, stuff like that, it's so freeing. It's so freeing to just not have a schedule and not have to adhere to like well, it's 10 o'clock. In order to get a good sleep, I need to
stop eating carbs now.
Exactly. Like no coffee at this point now. You know what I mean? Like it's so cool, man. Like I think like those need to be like those days where you have no set schedule. I think those need to be like programmed into your week or into your month or whatever. Like
I think with like, especially with the survivalist thing, I was thinking early on when we were chatting, it's like, again, with that focus thing, I think like when you're surviving or like you're out in the bush and you're like camping or whatever, it's like you only have one goal, and it's like, eat when I'm hungry, make sure I'm still living at the end of this. And if you have no set schedule, it's a different type of zen.
Yeah.
It's definitely a different type of like calm and peace. Like you said, with the calm in the when you're lying down in your backyard, it's like it's super, super nice to like, I don't have to do anything, and if I don't do anything, I'll die, so I'm going to do these things anyways. But I mean, like, I don't know. I don't even know how to explain that feeling. But it's a cool thing I thought about that I still can't explain. There's no really words for it, I guess, that I have right now.
Yeah.
Maybe one day it'll pop into my head.
One of my favorite, like, thought experiments, or, like, not thought experiments, but like, things that I want to try sometime is, like, just to mess up all the clocks in my apartment.
And just...
And, like, not have that schedule and not, like, look at my phone and be like, oh, it's 2 o'clock. Go based on, like, what I'm feeling rather than what I'm seeing and, like, being told is the... Like, we associate, like, so many things with time. Like, we associate, like, hey, it's lunchtime, so it's noon. Or, like, whatever. So I think it'd be a really, really fun experiment for a day to just be like, not live with time, if that makes sense.
Right. No, that would be an interesting experiment.
Yeah.
Do it for more than a day if you can help it.
Oh, man, I would love that.
Dude, do it for a week.
Could you imagine?
I mean, for those 4 days that we were out there, it was kind of like that. It was like, I remember we sat down, and it was like, sat down on this log, and we were drinking Stellas, and I think we might have had a joint rolled up. Yeah. Because it's BC.
Absolutely.
So why wouldn't a guy? And, like, we sat there and we sat down and we're like, wow, we better get going back. It's going to be dark soon. And it's like fucking 2:30 and we're like, what is going on right now? Like, I haven't looked at this clock in forever. So I think it's definitely something people should do is, like, take yourself out of all of that. And I think camping and surviving kind of does that.
And I think, like, that's such a, like, we're so obsessed with time. If that makes sense. Like, the amount of time, how many times has somebody asked you, hey, what's the time? Or, like, hey, do you have the time on you? Because, like, that dictates every part of our day,
right?
You know, and I don't know. I think that's a really interesting thing to like explore, rather than just to take for granted that like, oh yeah, I just have to know the time all the time. Time.
It's kind of weird to think about though. Is like everything you see now is like, let's go right now, do this, fit more, do more.
Yep.
And then like not doing doing the complete opposite, I feel way more productive and I went to bed at the night and I was like felt productive. I felt like I had a very productive day even though nothing had changed.
Yeah.
Which is a great feeling.
Chris, I want to bring you into this, but I just have one more point to throw in here is that like over the last year or so, I've had this like revelation of there's no rush. Obviously there's this thing called deadlines, or there's these things called responsibilities. But at the end of the day, when you wake up and you're like you're so set on this strict schedule, like let's take work for example. Hey, there's a deadline coming up for this media release that I need to put out. Is the world gonna end?
No.
If I don't meet that deadline, obviously I'm going to try to.
Right.
Like, that's work ethic. That's like, hey, we're trying to hit these deadlines. There's no rush though, and you can apply that to life, man. Like, and I know that's very much like, man. But like, I don't know, man. Like, it bothers me how much everybody's in a rush, and hey, sorry, I can't talk, I need to go, or
Right.
like I like. And again, like, take this all with a grain of salt. I don't have kids, like, you know what I mean. Like, there's responsibilities in life, but I don't know, like, take a moment to breathe. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's really a state of mind of like people trying to be as efficient. Like I gotta
Yeah.
use every single hour of my day, or not. I'm gonna lose money. I'm gonna lose my time, or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah. It just I can see how it gets to you at the end, and an experience like yours, Brad, where you're in the mountains and you're like, well, I don't have to be anywhere.
Yeah.
I can just enjoy the moment. And I think that you must have been so relaxed when you came back there. It must have been amazing.
It was unreal. I don't even know. It was the greatest thing
you
ever.
feel different after that.
Yeah, for sure.
Genuinely.
It gives you a little bit of a different perspective.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, just take a deep breath once in a while, maybe.
Yeah.
And just breathe. Be like, hey, I'm living right now, so it's all good.
Living the dream.
Living the dream.
It's really interesting that you brought up the word efficient, because I feel like that's very much like what we've kind of been conditioned to, like, be like, hey, if you have a spare moment, you should feel bad because you need to be doing something.
Right.
Like when you're a kid, basically, like if you were just lounging and not doing anything, your parents would be like, go do something.
Go clean your room.
Go be efficient.
Yeah.
And I obviously that goes with the structure of the world is very much like, hey, you need to work 8 hours and then you'll get home and then you need to work on keeping yourself alive.
Yeah.
And then if you have responsibilities such as children or family, you need to work on ensuring that they are surviving. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
there's no the idea of a wasted moment is kind of a luxury now, which kind of sucks.
It does kind of suck.
I don't know.
Like,
And I think camping and surviving. I think camping and surviving and survivalist type things kind of remind us of that, like, life doesn't have to be a million miles an hour.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah, because I don't know about you guys, but I often catch myself looking at the time and I'm like, oh, it's only 8 hours before I have to go to bed.
Yeah.
All the time.
Oh, God. And I'm like, oh, I really want to spend more of my time. And then you look again and it's like, oh, only 4 hours now. And you're like, oh, tomorrow's work. I don't want to go to work. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get caught in that a lot.
Oh,
Even like when I was like going to bed and stuff like that. I'm sure you feel the same way. And I bet you guys probably both feel the same way, where it's like, oh, I have to go to class in 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then the 2 hours just disappears because you're sitting there worrying about going to class in 2 hours.
Absolutely.
exactly. And then you
Absolutely.
don't get to enjoy your weekend.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh, my God, why do I do this to myself?
The worst.
Exactly.
Yeah. Guys, this has been fantastic so far.
Nope.
But I really want to talk. It sounds like I'm going to an ad break.
Our sponsors.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to talk about the media that has inspired us in terms of, like, camping, survivaling. Survivaling is not a word. I need to remind myself. I like it a lot.
We
It
should
has
put
a
it in
nice-
the title.
I think survivaling stories.
Survivaling stories.
Yeah.
I like it.
Has a nice ring to it.
Yeah,
Survivaling.
it's kind of nice. I'm surviving.
I'm survivaling right now.
But, like, Chris, you mentioned Metro as, like, one of your huge influences.
Oh, God.
Is there any other, like, is there movies or is there other games or books or anything like that kind of like got that itch going, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a couple movies I can think about, but a lot of movies about the apocalypse are just downright depressing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And-
oh yeah. I don't know if you've seen this Last of Us show.
Just finished it yesterday,
Ooh.
actually.
Hey, episode 3.
I haven't was there season 2 out now?
No, sorry, like season 1, episode 3,
that
Nick
was the saddest
Offerman.
thing
Genuinely one of the most depressing things I've ever seen in my
Yeah.
life, but also like one of the the happiest
Yeah,
things.
for sure,
You know,
for sure.
Anyway, sorry.
What a mix of emotions.
Oh,
but,
it was rough.
It was a roller coaster.
I don't think I've ever cried that hard from media. Like,
oh, wow. Yeah. No. Yeah, I mean, movies, I can think, they're all, the titles are all in French because, well, my TV was all in French. But
Right.
I know mostly video games that really influenced, well, like I said, Metro, and then Metro Last Light, and then Metro 2035, which is Metro Exodus, and then a new Metro that's coming out, Metro Awakening, on VR. I know there's other, like, survival games out there. I know there's also books that I've been reading because Metro 2033 is actually from a Russian author called
Right.
Dmitry Glukhovsky, if I pronounced that right.
Sure.
Sounds
And
pretty good.
yeah, oh, thank you.
Sounds right to me.
And that's what got me into reading too, because I mean, English books I'd rather read French books, but that one was only translated in English, so I'm
Okay.
like, oh, I'm gonna read that one. And one thing that's really great with this author is that his universe and he extended kind of the rights and opened them to anyone.
Oh, cool.
So he was like, hey, other authors of the world, if you want to make a Metro universe, but in your city, in your country, you should do it. And that's how it came out with Metro books about. I know there was one in Poland. I know there was one in Paris, which I still have to read. There's other ones in like Argentina or Chile, and it's really from all over, and it's all building that same universe in that same kind of world. And it's amazing that I don't know of any other book genre that do that.
I was about to say it's awesome to see someone do something creative and then be like, I want other people who are creative to expand on this.
Yeah.
I've done what I can.
Yeah.
Go crazy.
Right.
Do you mind explaining Metro to the layman that may not know what exactly Metro, like, what's the basic premise of Metro?
So,
because like even I'm not, like, I know it's about trains.
I know it, but I
or
don't.
like subway tunnels.
yeah, like, so essentially it's I do recommend people watching the trailers, like the very old trailers.
Yep.
It really, I know when I watch them, I have this weird thing about every winter when I have this kind of ceremony where I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch all the trailers, then I'm going to start with 2033, then I'm
Okay.
going to do The Last Light, and then I'm going to wait a little bit for Exodus because it changes seasons, just to immerse myself more into
Right.
the world. But what was your question?
Basically, like, what is the basic premise of Metro?
So yeah, essentially, you're in Moscow. It's 2013, and the world is ending. Nuclear bombs raining everywhere. Nobody knows what is happening. It's just the apocalypse. And so a lot of the population in Moscow goes into the subway. And fun fact for you guys, the subway in Moscow and a lot of like in Russia are all like certified like fallout shelters.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they actually have huge blast doors that can close. It's fascinating, honestly.
That's really wild, actually.
Yeah.
Was that to like prepare for like if Cold War kicked off?
Most probably, like, I don't know the entire history. I
Yeah,
might
yeah,
be like spitting like lies too, without knowing. But yeah, no, every station is like a huge bunker essentially. And so a lot of the
It's like the
population,
vaults in Fallout.
pretty much, yeah, exactly. And so a lot of the population goes into those vaults, those stations, and then they have to close the doors because Moscow population, and then fitting all into the metro impossible. So, and that's where the trailer really kind of gives you the chills because you can hear the
Like people
explosion
trying to get
and
in
then the
and-
quiet right
Oh
after.
no!
Oh, and so essentially, 20 years later, after that, your character, your name is Artyom.
Okay.
That's in French. In English, I think it's more like Artyom.
Sure.
Anyway, and so you're this guy. You're an orphan because your mother actually handed you to your adoptive father when the doors closed.
Oh no!
So your parents all died.
No!
Your adoptive father, his name is. Oh, I should have studied on that.
No, it's okay.
I think his name is Sukhoi. I can't quite remember. Anyway, he's the chief of the station, and your station is VDNK. And essentially, you're just growing up in this world, learning with everyone to live in this new apocalyptic world.
And I'm assuming it's like an irradiated world, so it's very much like, oh, a mutated bear over there or something like that.
Exactly,
Stuff like that.
yeah.
Okay.
So everyone lives in the subways, and the only people that go up are like either scavengers, but they get drenched in radiation and cancers and everything, and they die. But yeah, and so it's just the story about Artyom and just discovering the metro. And there's this species out there that has starting to appear at the borders of their station because they're on the outer kind of lines, and they're called the Dark Ones. And they don't know if they're aliens. They don't know if they're mutated kind of species. There's all this big mystery around them, and essentially, yeah, not to drag on for hours because I could speak about it.
I feel like
for hours.
if you could give a TED talk about like
Oh
Metro,
my
maybe, like the lore of it.
I am absolutely obsessed with this game, and essentially you go on this adventure because your adoptive father's friend, he's part of this military organization that kind of tries to hold the metro together between all the different political factions that are starting to rise between communists, Nazis, neutral
Oh
stations.
shit! Nazis
Yeah.
are in this? Oh no!
Hell yeah.
No, we don't. Not hell yeah! Hell no! Big hell no!
Yeah, ideologies never die, and essentially it's just this very complicated world, and you're trying to like save the metro from the species. And I won't spoil it more, but essentially this is this, and I would recommend reading the books, playing the games because they're slightly different, but
that's super cool.
Influenced my entire life, and I'm not even kidding.
That is an interesting. It sounds like he like really thought deeply about what would actually happen.
Yeah,
in that sense, and then threw a little sci-fi in there with like call them the Dark Ones, which isn't completely implausible.
Yeah,
that something would mutate like that way.
Totally.
But anyways, yeah, I don't know. That sounds like really
cool.
Cool.
Apocalyptic like literature and like in films and like media and stuff like that is always so interesting because like the person genuinely has to think like, okay, what would happen?
What would actually?
It's a really fun like I keep using the word thought experiment, and I know it makes me sound
that word
a lot, and I know it sounds pretentious, but like it's the only word I can think of right now.
That's what it is, though.
Yeah. But like it's a really cool like thought process of like, okay, so what would go down first? Power? Okay, if the power went down, what would happen after that? And then stuff like that. Brad, do you have any survival media that you can think of?
Oh, I just love survival games.
Yeah,
just all of them.
Okay. Any in particular that really stand out to you?
What, Minecraft? I don't know.
Sure.
Not. I guess it's not wild to say, but it's not very survivally.
Well, I mean, like managing food, managing water, managing like stuff like that.
It's definitely like I've always had an interest in the idea of surviving day to day kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like I think I've just always gravitated towards media like that. And going deep dives into people like on YouTube telling you all about what you're supposed to do with bushcraft and all that other stuff. And I don't know. I think it's kind of been one of those things that just trickled its way into my interests consistently. Somehow. But I can't really pick out specific media.
That's cool. But like it's fun that like some things kind of like give you that itch. You know,
there was definitely I guess there was a TV show called like How to Survive Blank, and it'd be like how to survive a home invasion and stuff like that.
Yeah, you were mentioning this earlier.
Yeah,
where,
a little
like
bit
that,
earlier. Or like, oh, there's a tsunami. What do you do? Or there's a fire, and it would like just go through these crazy scenarios.
Yeah,
like, oh, we're in an IT room and we gotta tie cords together to get down off the
roof.
That's
so cool.
That's so cool. Just like badass stuff like that, or like home invasion, like taking the nail out of the painting so you can undo a zip tie and stuff like that.
That's fucking cool.
I learned how to undo zip ties without breaking them.
Oh shit!
Oh, that's a neat thing.
It is pretty cool. It's surprisingly easy. There's just a little flap you gotta pull.
Huh? Didn't know that because every time I do one and I fuck it up, I'm like, well, that's a wasted zip tie.
Yeah. But yeah, it was like just little stuff like that, and it was like just like, and then as a kid, you're so like explosive with imagination. So every time I'd be lying in bed, I would just be like going through survival situations.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
Oh, what if the freaking world blew up right now? What would I do?
The amount of times where you're like, okay, if a guy fucking came up to me at the bar or whatever and tried to punch me, I would duck low and then I go ahead.
Yeah,
shit like that.
Yeah, I mean, and then there was like episodes about how to survive tornadoes and stuff like that. Obviously, weird thing. Apparently, you're more likely to survive a tornado if you go limp when you land. So people get knocked out in the tornado and they'll survive 200-foot drops because they're completely limp.
Huh.
Somebody actually like did that and landed in a field and stuff like that.
You know what? I think you're absolutely right, Brad. Because I heard a similar kind of statistic with like DUI drivers. Most often, DUI drivers, because they're under their influence, they don't really know what is happening. Their body is always limp upon the impact, and that's why they have higher survivability rates.
That's so fascinating.
People that are actually witnessing it, like, oh my God, brace for the impact.
Brace for the impact, yeah, and then they end up hurting themselves or killing themselves doing it. Yeah.
Huh.
It's a weird thing to think about.
I won't lie. If I'm flung around in the air from a tornado,
I'm not.
The last thing I'm thinking about is like, how am I going to land? Like, how should I do this properly?
Yeah. And then you're also like, imagine being in a tornado and then trying to be like,
You're right. Yeah. Let me just try and relax real quick.
Yeah,
it's
like, no.
A downward dog.
Yeah. The last thing going through my mind is probably my kneecaps. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I don't think we can have a survival episode without talking about the Long Dark.
Oh, Randy.
That's fair.
For those that don't know, there's the survival game called The Long Dark that I think the three of us all have experience in.
Yeah, I've played it.
Yeah. And it's just become like an obsession between Chris and I and Dal, where like, well, like it's for those that don't know, it's basically like a winter survival game set in Canada. On like an isolated island, and for some reason some sort of Northern Lights activity has knocked out all electricity, so you just have to survive. and like with no electronics, and that there's something about that game that like makes me yearn to like go to a cabin and just like not and just try and survive. You know what I mean? Like obviously I wouldn't be able to. I would die immediately.
Right, for
like,
sure.
I would be scavenging these houses, being like, "Where's the beans?" You know what I mean? Like I just need like, give me some beans. But yeah, like I think Long Dark is one of those games where like it's survival at its basest form, and like obviously when you gamify things, you have to like create shit like your hunger level and your thirst level and your stamina and your tired level and stuff like that. So it's a lot of like looking down at your levels and making sure you're okay, which is not life. Like you don't have levels in life where you're just like, oh man, I could my water level's getting low. You know what I mean?
Drink some water.
Yeah, that's called a headache. Like that's your body telling you that your water level's low. But yeah, I think Long Dark is like one of those games where I'm just like, I really think that I could do it. I could survive, or I'd like to try based on just playing this game.
That game's unreal. I mean, artistically, obviously,
incredible,
phenomenal. But like mechanics-wise, I feel like it kind of catches some of it for sure between time management and everything else before it gets dark and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and you know, just like hunting and all the other things that you have to do.
It kind of just hits home, close to home, because it's like in Canada, and like they're like, oh, it's minus 38 degrees, and I'm like, oh, I know what that feels like. You know,
can relate to it.
Yeah, it fucking sucks. I need to get inside. You know,
No, that is an amazing game, and I remember just for the first time discovering that game, and oh my god, it is also a game I can only play in the winter because I need to have winter outside, and so I can feel even more immersed.
Yeah, totally.
No, it's and they keep working on it, and they keep bringing new stuff.
So good.
Oh god,
so good.
I need to go back into that game sometime.
It's one of those games where you have to be in the right like feeling of like I want to go slow. Like I need to play a game where I need to like think and like not
rush everything.
Yeah, because like a lot of games sometimes you just want that quick fix of like an Overwatch game where you're just fucking like bang 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 5 minutes and in and out. With Long Dark, you can't run everywhere. You just have to walk and like trudge towards your destination and stuff like that.
That's definitely a thing I've been trying to work on in my gaming experiences, trying to step back and be like, it isn't just a beat the level and move on to the next one thing. And
stop trying to consume it so fast that you forget to like experience it.
Just like take a step back and just be like, like let's try and 100% this, or like let's really explore this area. Which I think Long Dark is a really good job of doing. Period, for sure. Oh, I was thinking of this weird. Sorry to get off topic.
No, it's
but
okay.
I thought of this theory me and Josie came up with out in BC. About like vacationing and like survivaling and stuff. Survivaling,
yeah. See, it's catching on.
It's catching on,
yeah. It's like, I think when you go away from home, or like if you go into the bush or you go camping in a camper or whatever, I think what makes it so awesome is being at home somewhere else than home. So you make somewhere else your home.
Yeah.
And I think that's like the part where it's like you feel so like the zen situation, or like what's the word? You feel so just like refreshed afterwards, I guess you could say. It's because you're all of a sudden you're in a completely different place and you feel just as comfortable as you do at home. I think it's like kind of like I could do this anywhere.
Yeah. That's a really interesting point to make. Like it's basically like it's almost like the base building aspect of like any game that you play or anything like that, where like you set up your base and you're like, this is my home.
This is my home.
And then the game kind of pushes you to go make a base somewhere else. And at first you have that trepidation of like, no,
this is my home.
But I have to. It's really inconvenient to get back to my home. But like, it's my home.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, that's why I think you're totally right in that like you become comfortable somewhere else, and then
obviously like you get yourself like acquainted with the area and stuff, which is a weird feeling, especially in BC. All of a sudden you're like, oh, I remember all of this, especially from like your first time walking out, and then you walk out again. And I think that comes back to why I find the idea of like living in a bush for a little while, or like disappearing into real wilderness for a little while and surviving, is like that process of forced learning, I guess is the way to put it. I think that process is friggin' cool.
I also think it's friggin' cool. I agree completely.
It's really fun.
Yeah.
And really, really calming in a weird way.
Yeah.
It's like you
it's a refresh point, man.
Yeah.
It really is.
It's like when you're a kid, you got to learn everything about the world, and then you go back out and you're somewhere else completely different, and you're just like, oh, I got to learn about the world again, which you don't get to do very often.
Brad, that's a really profound thought, in that like it's very much a situation of like you get too comfortable, and then hey, let's put you not in a situation where it's like life threatening.
No,
but let's spark that curiosity again. That
For
discoveries per hour thing again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. Do you think it's kind of that way, Chris, for you, where it's like you get into the idea of surviving, or
I'm telling you. Oxford Dictionary, hit us up. We got a new word.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. And you feel like acquainting yourself and the forced learning is something that you like about it, or is it?
I think like and that really ties into Randy's with the hour and the management of time. Really, it's just like being in a space where it's quiet and like being by yourself, and you're like, I can relax. I don't have to obey to like societal standards or anything. That's maybe too big of a word for this, but you're like because I don't know about you guys, like it's just living in the city. I don't like it. Like,
I get what you're saying.
Like growing up in rural, you're like, I can do whatever. I can scream from the top of my lungs, and the only thing that's going to hear me is the neighbor that's like 3 miles away, and not even then, And it's just, I don't know. Maybe it's just the kind of mentality I grew up in, where it's like I always feel like everyone's judging me around whatever I'm doing.
Yep.
Right.
Same.
And the thing about going camping or going away for like a whole entire week, and you can really resource yourself and be like, wow, like
yeah. For sure. Yeah, you got to take that step back.
There was when I was talking about like there's no rush, like as being a thing that I've kind of like had a revelation about. There was another one where I've called it finding solace in solitude. I think that is like isolation is actually I refer to isolation in a negative connotation. I refer to solitude as a like positive connotation.
Okay.
But like finding that solace and like just existing. I don't know. It's really nice, and like not having to depend on others to tell you if you're doing it right or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's,
for sure.
It's really cool.
It's a really fun. Like I definitely had that point in time where it's like it's just me and only me. Let's like being comfortable in that situation of being alone is I think it's a very important thing to do. Yeah. Anyway,
guys, we've been talking for quite a while, and I think it's about time we end the episode.
Already?
Uh-huh.
Oh God, that went so fast.
It does that.
It does that. Honestly, it's podcast time.
It's wild. You're just yapping, and then it's like, wow.
Oh shit, we've been here for
a while.
Nearly 2 hours.
2 hours? Oh my God, yeah.
From the moment we started doing the first 30.
Oh, okay, okay.
So, Christopher, this was a fantastic episode and fantastic conversation to have.
Guys, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on.
It was a fun time.
I appreciate it. Brad, obviously, always a joy to have you on.
Thanks, man.
I feel like I missed you last week, and then I can't remember. When was the last time you were on? Media Draft?
That would have been Musically Musings.
Oh, yeah, you were on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That was a great episode.
That was a really good episode.
This was a great episode, and I think it's going to do really well, because I think it was a really interesting conversation.
Oh. Yeah, and we got to put his name in the title.
Yay! We get to have you on a thumbnail. It'll be exciting.
See if you guys can spell my last name.
I know how to spell your last name. Vauzelle.
Oh, I'm going to get doxxed now.
And his address.
Shit. Yeah. Social insurance number. But yeah, it was, again, Christopher, thank you so much.
No, thank you guys. Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, everyone.
Hell yeah. And speaking of thank yous, let's get into the outro.
Cool.
Hey.
Segue.
I got really excited about that segue.
Yeah, hell yeah, man.
I was like,
It doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it happens. Obviously, thank you, Daniel. We appreciate you creating the dope music that you're listening to right now. Maybe Brad's sampled track right at the beginning. I don't know. Yeah,
Another one for you.
There you go. Put that in the bank. Obviously, thank you so much for creating our music, and thank you for editing our podcast. We really appreciate it. And creating our shorts. He's making our shirts.
He is making
I don't know why
shirts.
I said it like shirts. but like our shorts.
Dan's charting all over the place.
Yeah, okay. And then thank you to the Creation Nation Makerspace. I showed Chris around today, and he was like, wow.
It's a really cool spot.
It's a really cool
They
spot.
got woodworking. They got metalworks. They got 3D printers.
This guy knows the script. He He's listened to me do this outro.
I studied it.
Yeah. So yeah, check it out. We have the Facebook link to that in the description as well. Thank you, the listener. We appreciate you spending time with us and taking an hour and a half to listen to us ramble on about hunting, camping, survivaling.
100%.
Thank you.
Random baloney too.
Yeah.
Exit in there. Why not?
Awesome.
Why wouldn't a guy?
It's great. We're gonna call it there, folks. But again, thank you so much, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Also, before I go, I have I think I might create this as an intro, like part of the intro. Your bi-weekly connection through conversation.
Ooh.
I feel like that'd be a cool tagline for this episode or for this
That's
podcast.
a good little
Fancy words.
rolls off the tongue. Nice.
Yeah.
I like it.
I love alliteration. That's my
Oh, it's
stupid thing.
pretty
Like
unreal.
survival stories, connection through conversation, solace in solitude. Like I love alliteration. Anyway, we're gonna call it there.
Okay.
Have a wonderful day.
See you guys.
Goodbye.
Improvise, adapt, overcome, survivaling.